Laurel and Hardy made millions laugh for decades. They were Hollywood's golden boys, filling theaters worldwide. But behind the smiles was a dark secret. Despite earning millions for studios, Stan Laurel died with just $2,000 in his bank account. Oliver Hardy lost everything to gambling addiction and expensive divorces. The duo who created comedy gold never owned a single film they made. Studios got rich while they struggled to pay bills. This is how America's favorite comedians had been completely betrayed. Arthur Stanley Jefferson, later known as Stan Laurel, was born on June 16, 1890 in the small town of Ulverston, Lancashire. His father, Arthur Jefferson, was a well-known vaudeville impresario, playwright, and manager who ran several theaters across northern England. Life was not easy for the Jefferson family. A census from 1891 shows that they often had to take in other actors as boarders, squeezing into small rooms to save money. His mother, was also a performer, but variety shows rarely paid more than the wage of a laborer. Still, Stan's childhood was filled with the world of theater. He grew up watching rehearsals from behind the curtains and playing in prop rooms, while other children his age were sent to workhouses. 2 years later, on January 18, 1892, Norville Hardy was born in Harlem, Georgia. He would later be known to the world as Oliver Hardy. His life began with tragedy as his father died before he was even a year old. His mother, Emily, ran a hotel to support the family in a South that was still struggling after the Civil War. Times were difficult with outbreaks of yellow fever and high infant mortality rates. Emily even had to string barbed wire around the clotheslines to keep goats away. The boy, nicknamed Babe because of his round cheeks, found comfort at the local theater where he would sit for hours watching silent comedies. By the age of 8, he was already singing with minstrel troupes, earning a little money to help his family. Friends later recalled seeing him visit his father's grave alone, a quiet child whose laughter would one day mask the sadness of his early loss. Stan's father was not only a theater manager but also a leading figure in the English showbiz world. By the time Stan was 6, he was already living a backstage life most children could only dream of. He spent nights in theater lofts, doodled in prop rooms, and watched great performers like Vesta Tilley rehearse. In 1897, when his father leased the Metropole Theatre in Glasgow, young Stan threw himself into stage life. He helped with scenery, put on blackface for minstrel shows, and practiced routines when he was supposed to be studying. His school reports often noted his lack of focus since he preferred comedy to lessons. By the age of 15, he had already written his own sketches and was performing as Stan Jefferson in pantomimes. By 1906, he was earning money as a comic actor, while many of his classmates had never even set foot on a stage. Oliver Hardy, meanwhile, showed surprising talent as an athlete in his teenage years. At Georgia Military College around 1907, he excelled in football and even showed promise as a baseball pitcher, with some believing he could make it to the major leagues. He was also a strong swimmer, once credited with saving 2 children from drowning in Sweetwater Creek, though his mother hoped he would become a lawyer. Oliver enrolled at the University of Georgia largely to wear the red and black jersey of the team. His grades, however, were poor. He often skipped lectures for band practice and even slept in the locker room. His dreams of stardom eventually led him to perform as a singer in silent movie theaters, a step that would change the course of his life. In 1912, Stan Laurel, then 22, got his big break when he joined Fred Caro's London Comedians. He had been on the edge of starvation when he encountered Carnot in Leicester Square. Carnot was famous for demanding perfection with rehearsals that could last up to 8 hours a day. Stan became the understudy for Charlie Chaplin, sharing a tiny bunk with him during the troops' voyage to America on the SS Krona. That October, during the U.S. tour, they performed the sketch Hummingbirds more than 700 times, sometimes 3 shows in a single day. When Chaplin could not perform, Stan stepped in, battling nerves before tough American crowds. He stayed in America until 1927, carrying with him the relentless discipline and comic timing that would later define his career. Around the same time, Oliver Hardy's path took a sharp turn. In 1910, his mother opened the first movie theater in Milledgeville, Georgia, and Oliver took on every job, selling tickets, running the projector, cleaning, and managing. Instead of studying law, he watched every silent film that came through, sometimes viewing the same one 40 times. By 1913, convinced he could do better than many of the actors on screen, he moved to Jacksonville, Florida, which was then a booming center for silent film with nearly 30 studios. There he worked as an extra during the day and performed in vaudeville at night. His first professional film, Outwitting Dad, was released in 1914. By 1915, he had already appeared in 50 short films for the Lubin Studio, a remarkable start for someone who only 2 years earlier had been running a small-town theater. Stan's early solo career in American films was far from successful. Between 1917 and 1921, he starred in several silent shorts that failed to impress audiences, such as Nuts in May in 1917 and Phony Photos in 1918. Critics dismissed his performances as uninspired and too similar to Chaplin's. He became the subject of jokes in trade papers, and his parody, The Lucky Dog, in 1921, in which he starred, gained little attention at the time. Many of these films are now lost, surviving only through payroll records. Laurel struggled with being typecast and felt overshadowed by Chaplin. It was not until Hal Roach brought him into the studio in 1926 that his career began to recover. Oliver, on the other hand, built a huge body of work, though most of it went unnoticed. Between 1914 and 1926, he appeared in more than 250 silent shorts for studios like Vim and Lubin. The pace was exhausting, with some weeks demanding up to 4 films. Around 150 of his films are now lost to nitrate, decay, and poor storage. He was often cast in secondary roles or as the heavy, his large frame making him a natural choice for physical comedy. He even played the Tin Man in the 1925 silent version of The Wizard of Oz, a film now largely forgotten. Despite all this work, Hardy's name rarely appeared on posters, and his fame remained out of reach until Hal Roach paired him with Stan in 1927. Curiously, the two men had already crossed paths years earlier. In December 1921, they appeared together in a silent comedy short called The Lucky Dog. Laurel played a down-on-his-luck man while Hardy played a clumsy mugger. Historians later determined that the film was shot in late 1920 or early 1921, using evidence from trade papers and car registrations. At the time, it made no mark on their careers. In fact, both later admitted they had no memory of the encounter at all. It would be 6 more years before they officially teamed up, an astonishing gap considering the perfect chemistry they would one day share. In 1926, Hal Roach Studios in Hollywood was buzzing with talent, but a chance overlap created something unforgettable. Stan Laurel had just been rehired, not as an actor but mainly to write and direct short comedies. 0.